I'm going to first of all say I'm not opposed to getting this dam project done.
Me neither.
Okay, but I'm really opposed to having to pay for it through surcharges. Before I ask my questions, I can't tell the board and citizens of this community how many people I've spoken to who looked to buy houses in Evans and saw the sticker shock of the taxes and turned and went back north. And before I've mentioned the attraction besides your taxes, house value, location, is also schools. So back to that's just a little comment there. Adding to the water bill is an additional tax. We have to call it a tax. That's what it is. A surcharge is another word for a tax. So we have to take what people are paying in their water surcharge and add that to what we're paying in our taxes. And this whole idea of development, it ain't gonna happen because we're not right in bringing development, bringing potential homeowners. Okay, questions. Wanted to ask, hold on a second. Oh, first thing I'd like to ask is there a way the board or maybe your company could come up with a PowerPoint presentation that could be put on the town website? I'll put it on Evans Taxpayers United website that can explain all this. Speaking of explaining, my last question, which I'll save for last, is explaining bonds. Okay. Question: how much of a surcharge is legal for the board to charge its citizens? I mean, we're already paying, as the first speaker said, 3 times the amount of what we used to pay. People are also being charged a minimum usage, which I think is really unfair for the seniors, the low-income people who use only 6,000 gallons of water in a quarter, but are charged 9 plus. Basically you're looking at $83 minimum a quarter, which is a lot. It used to be $10 a month. Nice little incentive to come live in Evans. $10 water bills a month is cheap. Now it's $30 a month. You have to add that to people who don't own but rent. What can residents do to help the board with negotiations with the water authority? Can we circulate a petition, a referendum, and give you guys something to go with, saying we, the people, not just the board, just need some help? Back to my first question I wrote down here. What development is on hold because of this 11-year boondoggle? Do we know what projects are being?
Yeah, North Main Street, there was a apartment complex going up, and that's on hold.
Okay.
It's a 3-phase project.
Okay.
Most of the hold, it will happen on that side of town, like North Main Street, and that's where that's where the pressures are. It's, as Steve says, it's high
elevation, low water pressure.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and it's just timing.
Okay.
We've had a moratorium in place from 1999, 1998, so I'm not sure why all of a sudden, because if you go back to 1998 census data, we have less population now than we did there. So I'm not
That's
sure
true.
why they are now flexing their muscles and telling us, well, that can't happen right now.
Okay, well that gives us some leverage to go back with those statistics and use that with them, maybe. Back to the water tower, the place to build it. I could never understand why you would take the potential of a small airport location, lakefront, potential rich people moving to the lakefront and wanna land their little aircraft at an airport and wanna build a water tower there. I think an ideal location would be to find a place near the thruway. It's gotta be cheaper, number one, and two, the advertisement we could do, we gotta get creative, gotta think, I'm an art teacher, retired art teacher, gotta think outside the box here. What can we do to help offset these costs? So maybe that's something we could do strategy-wise.
Please don't paint it like a hamburger.
No, but, at least get Evans there, and put us kind of on the map. I mean, the traffic that goes by there. That's something to consider. I have a lot of questions here, sorry. Savings. So, we have this $20 million project. High taxes, high water bills. Because of this, where in this town budget can we cut costs and help offset this $20 million? Yes, grants, but where can we stop going to the taxpayer and water bills for digging out of this boondoggle? And I think there's one more question, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, so back to those two questions. How much of a surcharge is legal to charge us? Because if you look at the water bill, it's pretty costly. It's just, for water, it's just, my water bill is more of an expense than electric. And, gas, wow, hey, let's put the heat up. And back to that minimum use charge, talk about environment. We're encouraging people to, hey, I'm charged for 9,000. Hell, let's put the wash on high load because I'm going to be using this water, be charged for this water, and not encourage conservation. Pay as you go. And then lastly, can somebody explain the bonds? I don't get it. How do we start with a project that doesn't get finished and now it's up to 61% more, and this whole, how do we pay for the bonds? How do we apply for bonds? Can somebody explain that?
Well, let me talk about the surcharge is legal, and by law, whatever debt is out there on the water project, which is by law, but by contract, we have to fund that debt through the surcharge. So as much debt that we take on, the surcharge has to cover the debt, because there's no place else we can go for that to repay the debt. So now how we're doing the surcharge that's what comes into question, because right now not everybody is contributing because there's vacant property that has taken advantage of the infrastructure improvements out there, and because they don't have water, they should, just like sewer and that, they should pay some type of minimum charge against that. As far as the minimum use, that's the contract that was signed with Erie County. When you turn over something to somebody else to control, it's out of your control, meaning they set the minimums, we have to live by them. We have no control over that. But I will say, going back to when we did run our own water and bought the water from Erie County, if we were investing or we had a smart plan for infrastructure improvements, it wouldn't have come to this. If we would have maybe added a little bit more to at one point we weren't even charging enough to cover what Erie County was charging us per gallon or per 1,000 gallons. Erie County raises their cost to 35 cents per gallon or $1 per 1,000. And we, because of some reason, it's an election year or something, we don't raise the price and we keep it, we're only collecting 90 cents per 1,000. Well, we're already gonna be in a deficit. Now how are you gonna pay for the water department? How are you gonna plan for infrastructure improvements? So we didn't really, if we managed it a little bit cautiously on the beginning end or when we were managing it and made those improvements. But when I talk to our engineers and I look at the lease management contract and $12 million on things that to me, we shouldn't have spent money on. We should have been spending it on water line improvements. We have so much old water line out there. They're popping all over the place. but we replaced all the hydrants. We were replacing and scrapping 2-year-old hydrants. Why the hydrants? I'm not sure. Wasn't involved in that part of the contract. We're replacing meter pits and moving meter pits, and if we really thought about it, if it was such an albatross, we just spent $19 million and handed it over to somebody else, which to me doesn't make sense, but we just, as this board, it's our responsibility to bring it to a close. And my caution is, like, we can petition Erie County, but I really don't wanna get them too upset, because at this point in time, we can't take it back either. I mean, we can't afford the infrastructure that's going. If we had to take it back, that means we're out on all the brakes, we have to rebuild our water department, we have to put those costs in, so you talk about, it's really, it's a tough place to be right now. And as we talk with our water engineers and Rick, we wanna work with the authority very carefully. Okay. Because in 2020, if we don't get this done, water tower and the roads, if we can't get to renegotiate with them, what happens in 2020? I'm not really sure. And nobody's really sure. Nobody spends this much money on improvements to not to go to direct service. Because every other town spends money, I can't even imagine this much money. I've never seen a town spend this much money, and it doesn't end up into a direct service, meaning Erie County comes in and takes it over. Now, there's certainly gonna be 400 homes that we have to forever maintain because they're dirt and private roads, but with that being said, 400. Yeah, well, 400 on the roads, I'm not talking about town, okay. So it's unfolding as we start to peel the onion back a little bit to get this to a close, but Rick Henry, who works for Clark Patterson Lee, is a water expert, and he's dealt with all kinds of systems, wooden lines and upgrades so I'm confident that, we can maybe renegotiate some of this. I'm not really sure, but I look at the road project, 24 votes, we can't do that. So what happens if we don't repave those roads? Are they our responsibility? And so now we have to sort of reconstruct the water department, or we go to emergency service contract. It's really, so it's a little bit mind-blowing because we're trying to still figure it out. And that's what, Wendell is here, and that attorney, Nathan Neal, who we've,
I was gonna say, so.
Clark Patterson.
Edit, sorry.
Please take that back.
Almost walked out.
Don't walk out on me. Don't walk out on me, please, not now. So I apologize. But, so it's, we're working really diligent to try to bring this, but the water tower is critical. It's not something that's popped up, it's been hanging over our head for a very, very long time, so.
For the record, though,
For the record, can we say that Wendell was culpable in a way, responsible for this boondoggle?
Well, even back in the time that they were doing most of these construction projects, that's when gas was real high. Remember, it was over $4 a gallon?
Okay.
Right there, all your construction costs, they went through the roof, and that was the main part of when we were doing the project.
But why didn't it get done? What?
It got everything done, and then.
Except for the tower.
Except for the tower,
Okay.
but when you sit there and every time you get a new board on, it delays the project, all this was supposed to be done years ago. We're in the 11th year of it now. So you're probably, I would assume, talking at least another 3 years.
Okay. And then the bonds, can you explain the bonding behind this?
Bond is like a mortgage almost.
Okay.
Right. So what we do is
So where are we now, though? It was 16 million, now we're asking for 20 million, but how? Through bonding?
Well, we're not borrowing all, because we've already got 12 million out there. So we're only
Okay.
gonna draw down what we need for the water tower. So
Okay.
we're already paying back the 12 million, and I think we paid down like 300 and some thousand this year, principal and interest, if I remember correctly, just looking, I think it's like 309,000 or something
Okay.
like that. So, but we make the payments every year. What we're trying to do is refinance some of the debt. We're looking at some of those interest rates on that long-term debt, it's like 3%. That's really high for a municipality, I think, but
Yeah.
we had no bond rating back when, and so, and we weren't even collecting enough in the surcharge to pay down the debt. So when we first came in, that was one of the first things we did with Drescher Malecki was to figure out what the bond payments were, once we straightened them out, and get the surcharge funded correctly, because we didn't have enough money to even pay down the debt, let alone, you know,
Okay.
so we were running again, keeping that, borrowing from the general fund to take care of water, so that's where it got up to about $3 million.
So in a year, how much are we paying back approximately?
About 309, I think about, on average it was.
More than
No,
that.
it's way more
No,
than that.
way more
Oh,
than that.
I'm just thinking of interest, maybe,
Yeah.
In
What
principal
was-
and interest,
interest payment.
you're looking at probably $900,000.
A year?
Yeah.
Okay, and how much money how much of that money comes from our surcharge? I'm just, simplified, just,
All of it, all of it.
so all the surcharges on our water bill go
It's the
towards
debt.
the debt on the water tower project?
Yes,
So it's about 900,000?
yeah,
Okay.
I mean, give or take.
So, yeah, no,
Just be like,
simplified, yeah, okay, all right,
And we- and,
that,
you know,
that
what
helps
we-
me
we
understand
did
what's
too
going
is
on.
We segregate this money. I mean, before
Right.
we were just adding it into the general fund and, or we keep it in the combined.
Which is what?
We segregate it because
Yeah.
we get our payment from Erie County Water Authority,
Okay.
comes in, and we segregate it, so we know, so when we get our payments, we pay our payments probably before they're due.
Yeah, I've got one coming up on May 1st, and then I pay it next week, so.
Okay, all right, thank you.